When you listen to a salsa song, do you have problems figuring out which clave direction is being used by the musicians? Does it just seem too complicated, like some complex math problem? Well, it's actually easier than you might think. And in this video, we'll learn some tips that can help. And stay tuned until the end of this video for a special bonus tip that will make it super easy for you to figure out the clave. So welcome back to Salsa Goals, and thanks for tuning in. Now remember that there are 3 keys, or 3 questions, that we need to answer in order to really understand the clave. And the second question was, how exactly does the clave affect the music? And in part 3 of this video series, we saw how the clave direction affects the rhythmic pattern of certain instruments, like the timbales and the piano. That's why it's very important that musicians know the direction of the clave, because if the clave is 2-3, then they play the instrumental patterns in a specific way. But if the clave is 3-2, then they should play that same pattern in reverse. However, if they play their instrumental patterns with a rhythm that belongs to the wrong clave direction, then they are referred to as crossed with the clave, and that's very bad. That's why the clave is super important for salsa musicians. After all, the clave is the king of all rhythms. So how can we figure out which clave direction a song uses? Well, knowing that certain instrumental patterns sound one way on the 2 side of the clave and another way on the 3 side of the clave can help us figure out which side of the clave pattern we're on, even if we can't actually hear the sound of the clave rhythm very clearly. However, if we want to figure out what direction the clave is playing in, then we still might need to know how to do something else first, which is learn how to find the 1. Remember that the full clave rhythm is played over 1 musical phrase, which is 2 bars of music. Since each of those 2 bars is 4 beats long, then that's a total of 8 beats of music. So let's take a 2-3 clave as an example. The first bar of music, or the first 4 beats, would be the 2 side of the clave, and the second bar of music, or the next 4 beats, would be the 3 side. But if you don't know where beat number 1 is, then you might not know where that musical phrase is supposed to begin, which means that even if you could match part of an instrumental pattern to a specific side of the clave, you still might not know if that side belongs to the first half or to the second half of the musical phrase, which means that you still might not be able to figure out the clave direction. But if you know where beat number 1 is, then you can easily figure out when each instrumental rhythmic pattern begins and ends. So, if you know which part of the pattern is in the first half of the musical phrase and which part is in the second half, and you're able to match one of those parts to a specific side of the clave, then you can figure out the clave direction. And now it's time for a special bonus tip, and one of my favorite ways to figure out the clave direction. Listen for the conga tumbao rhythm. This rhythm sometimes indicates the clave direction in one simple but very obvious way, because sometimes it will tell you where the 3 side of the clave is because it makes a very specific sound. Usually, the conga plays the same rhythmic pattern over and over again, and it sounds like this. But sometimes, that same pattern will change slightly on the 3 side of the clave. Now remember that the beats of the 3 side of the clave fall on beat number 1, beat number 2.5, and beat number 4. And beat number 2.5 in particular has a special name. It's called the bombo. And on the bombo, the conga player will sometimes add 2 extra low open tones to the pattern so that it sounds like this. Even though this variation of the conga tumbao is very noticeable, you might not hear it all the time. But when you eventually do hear it, then you've probably found the 3 side of the clave. And once you've identified which part of the musical phrase contains the 3 side of the clave, then you can easily figure out which clave direction is being used. So here's the takeaway. There are certain instrumental patterns that can really help you figure out the clave. But since you might only hear a particular rhythmic pattern sometimes, it's best to listen for a variety of clues. For example, if you can't tell the clave direction from the piano montuno, then maybe the timbales, the horns, or the conga tumbao can help. Also, the rhythm of the lyrics will generally fit with the clave direction, especially during the chorus section of the song, also known as the coro pregón section, which sounds like this. But even though there is a science to salsa music, sometimes you have to experiment a little. So you might just have to try clapping out the clave in each direction to see which direction fits better with the music. But these are some of the ways that you can figure out which clave direction is being used at any given moment of a song. So until next time, but wait, what about one of the most important instruments in a salsa music ensemble, the bass? Can the bass help you figure out the clave direction? Well, we'll find out in the next video, along with the special $1 million question: how can the clave rhythm affect our dancing? So be sure to tune in for that. And until then, remember, stay safe, stay connected to the music, and keep dancing salsa.